another key thing, right? So as an organization, you may want things like these. Again, as an individual, you may not want it. As an organization, you may want it. So, for example, as a policy for a company that I have, I should decide whether I let USB drives or USB disks brought in or not. Right? So many companies take the strictest view that no kind of removable media can either enter the company or leave the company. Right? Have you guys been to software companies? Have you seen policies like these? So they will check all these things and also ensure that you don't have any of this being carried with you. Right? The same thing can happen in various government installations as well. So for example, there are government organizations like nuclear power plants and so on, where you can't take a cell phone with you. You can't take photographs anywhere and so on. Right? So this is a security policy and you have to decide if you're going to start a company tomorrow or if you're working in a company, your employer may have this or you may have this for the companies that you start. Do not allow such things, either to be brought in or taken out. So there are companies which do periodic checks. Security guys will come and check what kind of things are you carrying in, what kind of things are you carrying out and so on. So for these again, you don't really need a network. Right? Again, this is on a single machine. All the things that I'm talking about, right? I have a single machine. I created a Word document here. I gave it to you. I could have leaked some information from the Word document. Or I allowed you to take in a USB memory stick. That is. Or you come in and you get access to my wireless internet like what I'm getting now on in this campus. And I can do things with the wireless network here. Right? So these are security issues. What kind of policies do you want and how usable it is for your own employee. That's another thing. You should not forget that fact. Or you're making something infinitely harder for somebody from outside to use or abuse your system. And in the process, you also lose your employees' goodwill. Right? Again, this is an issue between usability and security. And in general, file sharing also. The moment you put something on a network, how are these files being shared? So, do you guys share files on the network? You do that, right? You go and create a share and you say that this share will be accessed using Samba from this network. You go to another computer, you can do this. This is still within a LAN. But it's something that you may not know. C colon and D colons are also more often shared by default. And the names may not come. If you go to a computer, you may not see that as something that is shared, but they're usually shared with a hidden dollar symbol at the end. So C dollar and D dollar are hidden share names for C colon and D colon. And this is something that may be turned on by default. You go and browse to a computer, they see all the shares, and you see the share names that you have explicitly given names for. But the C colons and D colons are also generally implicitly shared. You may not know it. Right? So you need to go and look at that also. Is a C dollar and D dollar accessible of one machine with a certain IP address? Is it accessible from elsewhere also? So you can do // IP address /C dollar. But check that out on your own. So this is something that you may not know. If you are going to share a C colon and D colon, then it's as good as sharing your computer with somebody else. So far we are looking at computers that are in some sense contained. So either it's a single computer or computers to which there is specific access. You have some kind of access control that only such people can come and such people get access. All these things that I talked about so far are restricted to that. But no real external world. You're not having people from outside world who you may not know. And you will not give access to such people. But there are various other things that happen if you are going to be on the internet. So internet is pretty much the wild. You don't have the comfort of your home anymore, but you are pretty much in the wild. You require a completely different set of survival skills if you are going to survive on the internet. If you want to put some machine on the internet so that others can use it, then you should start looking at how to protect that from various kinds of wild attacks. So that's why I said it's pretty much on the wild. And there are new ways of attack, there are new ways of thinking how to prevent these attacks or protect from these attacks. And many times there's also a lot of frustration and that comes with it. But leave alone frustration, sometimes there is loss, as in financial loss attached to it. This is why many companies are more particular about these things. When they put a machine on the internet, what kind of loss are they going to see? What kind of risks are they going to see? So it's one thing to lose financial data, there's another thing to lose personal data. So for example, what if Google had leaks in the security system and thereby your personal details are exposed? Right? They have a huge customer base and they're making money because their customers like them. And what if their information is leaked? So Google will not have my business anymore. So they start leaking my information. The customers will move away from Google. So these are things that companies have to worry about. Again, as individual users, we don't look at many of these things now. But once you start setting up companies, when you work for companies, you'll have to start worrying about these things as well. Or you may actually have your hobbies for which you have set up a website. Right? You write your own software and you're selling it. Or somebody downloads the software without you knowing it. You have a payment mechanism through which you sell, but they have a mechanism by which they are copying off from your machine. So many things are possible, and many times in courses that you're doing, you may not learn some of these skills, right? How to really hack into a computer, or how to stop somebody from hacking into a computer, right? You may actually learn bits and pieces from different people. You may try some of these things, they work, but some of these things don't work. You don't know how safe and secure your system is, or you cannot assess how safe and secure somebody else's system is. Right? So these are things that you may not learn in classes. So these are survival skills that you learn outside classroom if needed. Right? You probably have to learn these things outside your classroom, so it's not taught in your classrooms. So this is something that I do with my undergraduate classes. So I teach a class on computer networks. So I don't research in computer networks. So it was, so your professor mentioned that I don't work in the research field of computer networks, but I teach that to undergrads. Some of the things that I do in the classes, actually teaching them some basic hacking skills and so on, so that they at least know such thing can happen. You should not be naive and exposed. Right? So I always have these questions from other faculty members. You are exposing them to these things. What if it's abused? Right? Yes, anything can be abused. The point is, if they know this, it can happen, they will start protecting their own data. So for example, our campus has a very wide network and a very good internet connection coming in to every single hostel room. And students keep inventing very innovative ways of using the hostel network, even when it's shut down. So officially we have shutdown policy, and they try and look for innovative ways in which they can share data among computers that are plugged in. So these are things that you should learn, for example. So because once you learn these things, so you get a fundamental understanding of how computers work and how networks work, you can try some of these things. Within even just 2 or 3 computers, you and your friends put a network together, you can test some of these things yourself. So a simple demo that I used to do in the network classes, showing what is called man-in-the-middle attack. So there is machine A which is trying to access machine B, and machine B is supposed to respond to A, and there is this man-in-the-middle C. Any request coming in from A, C intercepts that, transfers that request to B as though it's coming from A. What it does in turn is B does compute whatever you want, maybe send a file or whatever. It intercepts the data that's going back to A by posing as A, collect the data, store it, and send the data back to A. So you see the process? So C is sitting between A and B. A intercepts traffic from both sides. So from A's side, C is B. From B's side, C is A. Both sides do not know that there is somebody else sitting in the middle. So this is called man-in-the-middle attack. So it can be mounted on different types of systems. If you are on a LAN, let's say I am there and Babaraju is there and we both are chatting within the LAN, you could come mount a man-in-the-middle attack without us knowing about it at all. It's possible. So these are the kind of things that I show simple demonstrations in the class, and this is something that you can write on your own. It's not so hard to write. If you know what to do, if you have the basics of computer networks, you could do some of these things yourself without anyone ever knowing about it at all. Right? So now this is a 2-pronged argument. Should you really learn such things? Your teachers may not like it because you're going to do all sorts of dirty things. Right? So the other thing is, once you know it is empowerment. Right? So I know these things, so I'll try and stop these things from happening to my department's network, my hostel's network, and so on. So many times I also teach the sense of responsibility along with all these other skills. So this is something that they have to exercise caution with, that they can't abuse these things. So I also teach the sense of responsibility that comes with these things. So let's look at common kinds of attacks that are possible on the internet. Most attacks actually happen through browsers, right? The moment you use a browser, there are many things that can happen through a browser. So visits to certain websites can change the browser behavior. It can install components inside your browser without you ever knowing about it. It can install software, download and install software, send information from your machine, various kinds of things.